My name is Olivia Bennett. I'm 28 years old. And the hardest lesson my father ever taught me was that being family doesn't always mean being treated like family. For years, I believed my father saw my sister and me equally. I was wrong. I discovered the truth at my grandfather's funeral. While everyone else was remembering the man who raised me, I overheard my father talking to my sister. "Your grandfather left money for both of you," he whispered, "but I've already handled Olivia's share." I froze. My sister Madison looked confused. "What do you mean?" Dad lowered his voice. "I transferred it into your account. You need it more than she does." I stood behind the hallway wall, unable to move. My grandfather had left me an inheritance, and my father had given it away to my sister, without asking me, without telling me. And what happened next changed our family forever. Growing up, Madison was always the favorite. She was 3 years older than me and knew exactly how to get Dad's attention. When she wanted something, she asked. When I wanted something, I was told to wait. Madison got a new car when she turned 21. I was told to save for one myself. Madison received help with her college tuition. I worked 2 jobs to pay mine. Whenever I complained, Dad had the same answer. "Madison needs more help than you do." I hated hearing those words, but I convinced myself it wasn't favoritism. Maybe Dad simply thought I was stronger. Maybe he trusted me more. And then there was Grandpa. He was the one person in my family who never compared me to Madison. Every Sunday, I visited him. We drank coffee. We talked about work. He listened when I had problems. One afternoon, shortly before he died, he held my hand and said, "Olivia, promise me something." "What?" "Never let anyone make you feel less important because you don't ask for as much." I smiled. "I promise." He squeezed my hand. "You deserve your own life." Those words stayed with me. I just never imagined how much I would need them. After Grandpa's funeral, I went home feeling emotionally exhausted. That evening, my father called me into the living room. "We need to talk about Grandpa's estate." My stomach tightened. "Okay." Dad sat across from me. "Your grandfather left some money." "I know." He looked uncomfortable. "There were some complications." "What kind?" He sighed. "Your grandfather wanted to leave both you and Madison a significant amount." I waited. "How much?" Dad wouldn't look at me. "Your share was supposed to be around $120,000. My heart skipped. "And where is it?" Dad was silent. Then he said, "I gave it to Madison." I stared at him. "You what?" "She needed it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You gave my inheritance to Madison?" Dad became defensive. "She has children. She has a mortgage. You're single and financially stable." I laughed, not because it was funny. Because I didn't know what else to do. "So because I don't have children, you decided my money wasn't mine?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" Dad leaned forward. "I'm saying Madison needs it more." I looked at him. "And did you ever ask me?" He said nothing. That silence hurt more than the money. I stood up. "You made the decision because you knew I'd be the one who wouldn't fight." Dad frowned. "Olivia, don't make this into something it isn't." "It already is." I walked out. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to convince my father that I deserved equal treatment. I moved forward. I sold some furniture, rented a smaller apartment, and focused on my career. I worked as a marketing consultant, and I began taking freelance clients. At first, things were difficult, but I refused to give up. Every time I wanted to call Dad and ask why I wasn't enough, I remembered Grandpa's words, "You deserve your own life." So I built one. 2 years passed, then 3. My small freelance business became a real company. I hired 2 employees, then 5. Eventually, I moved into a beautiful apartment and bought my first home. I did it without my father's money, without Madison's help, without anyone's approval. And strangely, I was proud of that. Then, one evening, my mother called. "Your father wants to see you." I hesitated. "Why?" "He says it's important." I almost said no, but curiosity won. I agreed to meet them the following Sunday. When I arrived at my parents' house, everything looked the same. The same front porch, the same family photographs, the same dining table where Madison and I had eaten dinner as children. But something felt different. Dad looked older, much older. He sat quietly while Mom brought coffee. Madison wasn't there. That surprised me. "What happened?" I asked. Dad looked at Mom, then back at me. "We're having financial problems." I waited. "What kind of problems?" Dad explained that his business had suffered several major losses. Then his largest client had canceled a contract. He had debts, loans, bills, and now the bank was threatening to take the family house. I looked at him. "What do you want me to do?" Dad swallowed. "We need help." I almost laughed. 3 years earlier, he had taken my inheritance because he believed Madison needed it more. Now he needed something from me. "How much?" Dad told me. It was a lot, more than enough to save the house. But I didn't answer. Instead, I asked, "What happened to Grandpa's money?" Dad's face changed. "What?" "My $120,000. He looked away. "It's gone." "Of course it is." "Olivia, no, tell me the truth." Dad remained silent. Then Mom whispered, "Madison used most of it." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Madison had used the inheritance to pay debts, renovate her house, and buy expensive things. And now Dad wanted me to fix the consequences. I stood up. Dad looked frightened. "Where are you going?" "Home." "Olivia, please." I stopped at the door. I had waited years to hear my father say that word, please, but hearing it now didn't feel satisfying. It felt sad. "You told me Madison needed my inheritance more than I did." Dad lowered his head. "I was wrong." "Yes. I thought I was protecting her." "You weren't protecting her. You were teaching her that someone else would always rescue her." Dad's eyes filled with tears. "I know." I turned around. "And you taught me something too." "What?" "That I couldn't depend on you." He looked devastated. But I wasn't angry anymore. I had already mourned the father I thought I had. I didn't give Dad the money. Not immediately. Instead, I offered something different. I told him I would help him review his finances. I helped him sell unnecessary assets. I connected him with a financial advisor. I helped negotiate a payment plan with the bank, but I refused to simply hand him a check. Dad didn't understand at first. "You have enough money to save us." "I know." "Then why won't you?" "Because if I solve everything for you, you'll never learn how to solve it yourself." For the first time, Dad didn't argue. He nodded. Maybe he finally understood. A few months later, Dad managed to stabilize his business. He sold the house and moved into a smaller place. It wasn't the life he had imagined, but he was okay. Madison eventually called me. She apologized. At first, I didn't believe her. Then she said something unexpected. "Dad told me I wasn't entitled to your inheritance." I remained silent. He said he made a terrible mistake. I didn't know what to say. Madison continued. "I should never have accepted that money. You should have told him no." "I know." She started crying. "I was jealous of you." That surprised me. "Why?" "Because Dad always said you were independent. I thought that meant he loved you more." I laughed softly. He didn't love either of us correctly. There was silence. Then Madison said, "Can we fix things?" I thought about it. "I don't know." And that was the truth. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Sometimes forgiveness is simply deciding that someone else's mistake won't control your future. A year later, I visited Dad at his new home. It was smaller, simpler, but it felt peaceful. He handed me a small wooden box. I opened it. Inside was Grandpa's old watch. I stared at it. "Why are you giving me this?" Dad looked down. "Your grandfather wanted you to have it." I swallowed. "You should have given it to me years ago." "I know." Dad's voice broke. "I spent years thinking you didn't need me because you were strong." I looked at him. "But being strong doesn't mean I didn't need my father." He nodded. "I know that now." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "I'm sorry, Olivia." This time, I believed him, not because the apology erased what happened. It didn't, but because his actions had finally started matching his words. I still think about Grandpa often, especially when life gets difficult. I keep his watch on my desk. Whenever I look at it, I remember what he told me. "You deserve your own life." And I finally understand what he meant. My father gave my inheritance to my sister. He thought he was deciding who deserved it more. But he couldn't take away what mattered most. My ability to build my own future. My confidence. My independence. My self-respect. I didn't need the $120,000 to prove I was worthy. I proved it every day by getting back up. And when my father finally came begging for my help, I didn't punish him. But I didn't rescue him either. I helped him learn how to stand on his own. Because sometimes the greatest consequence of betrayal isn't revenge. It's realizing that the person you hurt no longer needs you to survive. And that's exactly what happened to me. My father took away what he thought I needed. Years later, he discovered the truth. He never took away my future. He only forced me to build it without him.